What do I want to say with this story? Yeah? What do you want to say with this story? What do you think? What do you think about this story? I think running away is what I want to say with this. Change is possible.
How do you get the audience to care about the story you're telling? In the case of God of War, the answer is easily. Within the first minute of 2018's God of War, we become invested in the protagonist, Kratos, because it is made clear what he is feeling. From the moment that new game is selected from the title screen, the player is immersed in Kratos' story. He approaches a tree to chop it down, but instead kneels in front of it, placing his hand over the handprint on the trunk and cradling it in a gentle manner. There is a tenderness here that directly contrasts with what happens next. Kratos swings his axe, slowly at first, and then violently, roaring in anger as he fells the tree. As we soon learn, Kratos is mourning the death of his wife Faye, and while he initially reacts with sadness and reverence, that quickly gives way to rage. This demonstrates that Kratos has much to work through with this loss, and this mixture of grief, love, and fury is made all the more complex with the introduction of Kratos' son, Atreus.
I found some.
Get in the boat, boy.
Kratos pointedly avoids looking at his son here, actually turning away from him as his son rotates around him. And rather than call him by his name, Kratos calls Atreus,
Boy, 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 boy.
Atreus is clearly eager for his father's approval, an idea that is constantly reinforced as this initial chapter plays out. For example, when Kratos and Atreus are hunting deer, Atreus rushes his first shot at his quarry and misses, which prompts this reaction from his father.
What are you doing? Now his guard is up. Only fire. Only fire when I tell you to fire.
I'm sorry.
Do not be sorry. Be better.
Kratos calms down soon after this, but he clearly isn't great at this whole dad thing. We learn later on that Faye mostly raised Atreus on her own, because Kratos wasn't around much in his son's early life, often neglecting his fatherhood in favor of hunts and walkabouts. After Atreus fells the deer and Kratos helps his son put the creature out of its misery, Kratos recognizes his son's distress and reaches towards him. But again, he struggles in his role as a father and withdraws this gesture of comfort. He wants to be there for his son, but he doesn't know how to be there yet, as Kratos is wrestling with his own demons and inexperience as a parent. Before Kratos can do much here anyway, a troll grabs the slain deer and attacks Kratos and his son. Atreus' reaction after killing the troll shows how much pent-up emotion is in him from his mother's death, as well as his desire to prove himself as capable to his father.
That's what you get!
Boy.
Think I'm afraid of you! You're nothing to me!
Boy,
Nothing!
look at me. Look at me, boy. Boy, look at me. You are not ready.
Of course, this has the opposite effect that Atreus intended, as Kratos witnesses this outburst and decides that his son is not ready for their journey up the mountain to spread his mother's ashes. Just as Kratos lashes out in anger over his grief at the very start of the game, Atreus lashes out in anger here too. I love the little detail of Atreus coughing as he screams he's not afraid, as we learned previously that Atreus has been hampered by illness throughout his childhood. This makes Atreus overeager to prove himself as strong to his father, a fact that Kratos is distinctly aware of. God of War is a game as much about Atreus as it is about Kratos, and we're frequently shown Atreus' perspective on the events of the story. When Atreus is preparing his mother's body for her cremation, the camera sticks entirely with Atreus for an extended period of time, allowing us to empathize with him and put ourselves in his headspace. When he turns and sees his father standing in the doorway, Kratos appears as a hulking, intimidating silhouette. This is how Atreus sees his father, as an unknowable and even frightening figure who is very reluctant to support his son, while Kratos sees his son as someone who is far too headstrong to journey into the dangers of the world. This dynamic between father and son isn't anything we haven't seen many times before, but it's executed with such tact that it feels new and fresh. Atreus is desperate for his father's approval, but Kratos isn't very willing to give it to him. However, Kratos isn't unnecessarily cruel. He doesn't have the most optimistic of worldviews, but he wants Atreus to earn his approval. Of course, this doesn't always go well for both of them, but you can see Kratos trying to connect, even as he's afraid of becoming close with his son. Both Kratos and Atreus become incredibly vulnerable in the wake of Faye's death, and that makes their tenuous relationship even more rocky than it already was. The stakes of this story are raised further when a stranger comes to Kratos' door, and the stakes are raised further yet when a battle erupts outside Kratos' home and begins literally tearing it apart. Atreus is left hiding under the floorboards, and we understand and connect with Kratos' desire to protect his son from this terrifying and mysterious threat. The camera sticking with Kratos from gameplay to cutscene and back again is key. It keeps the player engaged with the danger of the situation, as the boss fight itself is thrilling and quite challenging. And the spectacle of this battle is absolutely bonkers. You literally tear the earth apart while fighting this guy, and it's all sold through the animation. Holy moly, would you be hard-pressed to find a game that does epic better than God of War. Aside from geeking out about this game's remarkable animation, I also want to highlight how God of War uses its camera to sell that remarkable animation. When the stranger punches Kratos here, the camera follows Kratos over the house, allowing us to feel the momentum and impact of this hit. And God of War continues to follow the action with its camera throughout the entire game. But when talking about the camera, we need to address one of God of War's most impressive accomplishments: its seamless transitions between cutscenes and gameplay. Like a movie that's made to appear like it's one unbroken shot, God of War never cuts away from its characters, and never cuts once at all. While undoubtedly impressive on a technical level, this aspect of the story isn't an arbitrary gimmick. You are forced to live in Kratos' body and experience the physical and emotional struggles that he experiences. There is no break for the characters, so there is no break for the player. While previous God of War games place the camera much further away from Kratos, 2018's God of War places the camera much closer to him, allowing for a greater emphasis on character performance. This is particularly important because so much of the story is conveyed through character performance, and so much of God of War's character performance is extremely subtle. Kratos isn't much for talking, but we're shown through actor Christopher Judge's amazing motion capture performance exactly what Kratos is feeling. Both he and Sonny Suljic, the actor who plays Atreus, bring a boatload of chemistry, talent, and vulnerability to their characters. The reason why Kratos and Atreus feel so real, the reason why their characters are able to express their emotions through quiet moments and subtle changes in body language, is largely due to the authentic performances of these actors, as well as the excellent direction, motion capture work, and animation supporting them. When these aspects of game making collide, the results are breathtaking. After the perilous battle with the stranger, Kratos limps home, bloodied and fatigued. It is at this moment in the story, when Kratos is at his most physically vulnerable, that he is also at his most emotionally vulnerable.
Faye, what do I do? Our son is not ready to carry your ashes to the top of the mountain, and neither am I. I do not know how to do this without you.
He admits that he isn't ready to raise Atreus on his own, and that he needs Faye's support, even though she's now gone. The camera even moves closer to Kratos than it normally does, as this is our first look at Kratos when he is truly vulnerable. God of War may be a game about beating the ever-loving heck out of monstrous beasts with a magic axe, but it's also a game that sports very effective cinematography. And while God of War tells an engaging visual story like many great films do, it also utilizes the unique medium of video games to complement its narrative. In the game's first combat encounter, Kratos fights alone, insisting that Atreus isn't strong enough to assist him. Yet as the game's introductory chapter plays out, Kratos allows Atreus to aid him in battle, demonstrating their growing bond. The first hour of God of War tells a story about the tense, developing relationship between a father and his son, and the gameplay over this first hour reflects that narrative growth. Alright, I know I said I was only spoiling the first hour of the game, but there are a few aspects of this introduction that I can't talk about without delving into major endgame spoilers, so skip to this timestamp on screen if you want to avoid them. At the very beginning of God of War, after Kratos chops down the tree in rage, the bandages wound around his arm begin to unfurl. As we learn at the story's conclusion, Kratos wears these bandages to hide the scars he bears from wielding the Blades of Chaos for so many years. These scars represent all of Kratos' pain, anger, and regret, and they begin to come undone here because he is lashing out in anger. Kratos is in danger of becoming that person again, that bloodthirsty killer who cares only about revenge. Additionally, when Baldur shows up at Kratos' home at the beginning of the game, he remarks,
I thought you'd be bigger. Long way from home, aren't you? And here I thought your kind was supposed to be so enlightened, so much better than us.
Baldur doesn't think Kratos is a Greek or a Spartan. He thinks that Kratos is a giant. He didn't come here because he was specifically hunting Kratos, but because he was hunting the last of the giants. And Kratos' wife Faye is revealed to be a giant at the end of the story. It's little details like this that make God of War such a polished and attentive game. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the gorgeous score composed by Bear McCreary, whose tracks are equal parts haunting, epic, and reverent. Even when Kratos is just kneeling next to a tree in the opening moments of the game, we feel his pain thanks to McCreary's music. It's almost incomprehensible how quickly God of War is able to invest its players in its story. In less than an hour, the player has been deeply immersed in Kratos' and Atreus' lives and world, and God of War continues to sink its hooks into its players as the game goes on. Whether the player is watching a cutscene, battling for survival, or exploring the game's captivating environments, God of War never shifts its focus away from its characters.
The overall theme of this is that the kid is going to teach Kratos how to be a human. Kratos is going to teach the kid how to be a god, right? Each of them has a piece of them missing, and they kind of help each other out on this buddy road trip movie.
God of War is the result of thousands upon thousands of hours of work from hundreds of talented individuals, and I am pleased to say that their hard work has paid off in full. If you haven't picked up God of War yet, I hope this video has encouraged you to do so, because it provides an experience seldom rivaled in video games, and for that matter, in storytelling. To the team at Santa Monica Studio, thank you for creating such an ambitious and moving piece of art, and thank you for showing us that change is possible. And to you, viewer of this video, thank you for watching. In case this wasn't abundantly clear already, God of War is one of my favorite video games I've ever played, so it was a pleasure to break down its opening chapter. If you enjoyed this video, likes, comments, and shares are greatly appreciated, and consider subscribing to my channel and following me on Twitter to keep up to date with the future of Critical Rants. I have a huge project coming up that I am jazzed as all heck about to share with you guys, so until then, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and I will see you guys soon.